Welcome to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. I'm Aaron Robbins with Intrinsic First. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Be sure to stick around to the end for some debatably funny jokes that will hopefully leave you with a smile. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes. We're here to support you, and we'd love to hear from you. So drop us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. Ready to dive into the world of leadership? Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. We're on episode 26.
Wow, we've done that many.
Yes.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
That's why, what's the joke about the scarecrow?
No, at the end.
Touche.
Yes, he made us
Yes,
off
he
on our
did it.
jokes.
Yes, yes, he did.
Good one. Well, we thought we'd talk about trust today. So, Drea, I believe you have a trust model. Maybe we'll start with that, and then we'll kind of jump into some stories, maybe.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about trust first, and put a solid definition, okay? Because that opens up a number of different conditions and why trust is often not granted. So let's just talk a little bit about it. For me, the definition of trust is the willingness to accept vulnerability from someone else. So you'd say, I make you promise to do X. So you're being vulnerable, and interestingly enough, trust is a motivational concept. You don't think about it that way, but it is. You have to be willing to be vulnerable to the promises that somebody might make to you or for you, and so it's conscious. It's not something that you just do. Although interestingly enough, you can, like, just think about it. Do you trust who do you trust? If we looked at the groups of roles that people played around us, who would you trust? For example, do you trust a doctor more than a reporter? Or do you trust a politician?
Depends what they're telling me.
Well, no. I'm just
Typically
saying.
a doctor more so, right?
Well, yeah. That's the number one role that's trusted the most, or seems to be trusted the most. But do you trust a politician? Do you trust a salesperson? And these come in greater or lesser amounts of willingness to accept the promises made by that role or that group of people. But because it's vulnerable, which I think is important, once it's broken, you have to then begin to get, well, how can I possibly do that again? Why would I do that again? So, if we talked about trust as a volitional act, a willingness to accept the promises that someone might make to you, it's both your tendency to trust someone else as well as whatever signals the other person is sending out about being trustworthy. So as we train or talk about trust or measure it, we're going to have to measure my propensity to trust others, because some people don't readily accept those things. And on the other hand, it's I sometimes realize that I don't trust myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, I have, one of the questions I always ask people is, did you make any resolutions in January for this year?
I typically don't.
Why?
Just if I want to do something, I just do it. I don't need like a reason to do it. I mean, or like a Yeah, New Year's resolutions, me don't really.
Are you saying that you never keep them?
No, I just want to have. I don't know. I don't want to have some arbitrary date in the calendar to.
Well, no one's asking for that. I mean, let's just say you want to make a promise to yourself that you're going to spend more time cleaning your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Now I mean this seems so irrelevant, but
Yeah.
but I'm making it to myself. I know a lot of people who say to me, "Well, I don't make resolutions anymore because I never keep them."
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. And I totally get that too. I was thinking like if I want to lose weight or get in better shape in November or October, I'm not going to. Okay, I'll just wait till January.
A lot of people do that.
I know they do.
You know, a lot of people. Here's another one. This is always fun. I don't announce my promises to myself. Why?
Okay.
Because you don't want to let yourself down.
No, because you don't want to be held accountable
right.
by other people.
Yeah.
Oh, out loud, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So we have these little.
Although from a motivation perspective, there's a lot of people that do that as a trick so that people will hold them accountable to make them as like an external motivator.
Yes, but then
That's not
it
sustainable,
suddenly
right?
just changed.
Well, of course it's not. If you heard our motivation podcast, that's not going to help you in the long term. But people do it all the time.
Right.
I know.
It's a trick.
It is a trick that they'd have to depend on others to people. But if you were with people who are self-determinist, so to speak, they probably wouldn't want you to do that for them, because it changes it from being your promise to yourself to your promise to them, and sometimes that's just uncomfortable. I don't want to go to that party because it's going to be there, and then
Temptation would be too great.
Yeah,
And so forth.
Yeah, I've got a marvelous person in mind who decided she wanted to lose weight, and she didn't want to hear, "Oh, how did it go today?" or "How did it go? Am I going to see less of you next month?"
So she didn't want to hear that.
No,
because
she didn't want to hear that.
It sounds like you're holding her accountable. Right.
Exactly. So I have to wait by saying to her, "How you doing on your promise to yourself?" And she said, "Well, I lost X number of pounds." So anyway, so let's go back. So when we start talking about trust, you really should begin to try to assess or judge how trustworthy you are as perceived by someone else. How trustworthy you are. And so we have a diagnostic process in our workshops where we first get people's perceptions of their willingness to trust you, and that's trustworthiness. And then we also ask people to begin to look at trusting themselves, and how do they make trust? Are there conditions to the process of trust, which I want to talk a little bit about. So we often ask people, does it take a long time for you to trust somebody? What would you say to that, Jim?
I always defer to it depends, but no, I typically do trust until they give me a reason not to trust them. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. So you start with the willingness to trust.
I do
with most anybody you do business with.
Right, until they give me a reason not to trust them. I guess that's my. I don't know if that's my disposition, but that's how I think of like people's propensity to trust others, and I know that's not the same for everyone. Some people don't trust anyone until they build that relationship.
There are people who don't want to grant that or give away that risk that to themselves.
Is that people like that? This propensity to trust, is it conditional? Is it from past experience? Is it part of their disposition? I mean, what is it?
Past. Let's go back for just a minute. If I say I trust you, and you say I just generally trust people unless they give me a reason for not doing so, you're willing to. So, what are the kinds of things I want to look at? What you trust for are there things that you would trust less for or with and or more. For example, we polled people and said, here's 5 things that people normally trust or ask trust for. Could you loan me some money? Would be one. Another one would, can I borrow your computer? Or another would be, can I use your car? Those are objects of trust. And of course, depending upon the issue or the thing I just mentioned, people are willing to say yes or not. And so here's another one. It's always fun. If let's say I got my computer and I'm at a restaurant and I want to go to the restroom, and if I said, would you watch this for me? Oh, it's the same thing in an airport. If you say, can I leave my bag with you? Would you mind if I don't want people. I'm not going to take that. No, I'm not going to take your bag. No, you could just walk away and things are too. So the first thing we ought to be talking about is what is the object of the trust, or what is the context of the trust itself. And so one of the things we try to get people to realize that will be differentially given depending upon the object and how dear it is, or how well you know the person, or the roles, or what do you know about this person or not. So those kinds of things are the beginnings to the willingness to trust. And same thing for yourself. I mean, I don't trust myself with certain things.
Yes. Yeah. No, for sure. So,
it's conditional, right? I mean, to a certain extent.
It'll always be conditional, I think. For some people who have been burnt, or some people who are by naturally low risk takers, and of course there is when you get into the dispositions that people naturally bring to the work setting. Some people are low riskers. They don't want to take a chance on losing whatever security there is in not giving it. So it's partly the person's natural tendency, and to trust themselves, but more importantly, trust others. Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference if you want to borrow money, even if we're talking $100 or $100,000.
Yes,
so
of course.
There's also a difference there as well.
Of course. So it's the severity and the amount of risk.
Yeah, can I borrow your car to go down the road as opposed to across the country?
Yes, exactly.
So,
exactly. So as we start to talk about trust, the first thing I think is important to do is to assess what is the topic, or what is the context in which someone is asking for trust. And it will be differential depending upon. So when you make promises, and think about kind of promises you might make to significant others. What kind of promise would you might make to significant others? What's a classic one?
I won't cheat on you.
Yes. So the whole idea of,
Yeah, and I don't trust myself in a room full of,
I was thinking about changing the laundry.
What?
My wife always tells me, I'm going to bed. Can you switch the laundry from the washer to the dryer? And I've messed it up so many dang times that I've learned to say no.
No, I don't.
No, I probably won't. Even if I say yes, I probably won't, because you get super pissed when I don't do it. Because I always forget.
Well, that's mine too. Mine is I'm going to do my laundry today. And the whole day goes by and I didn't do it. You didn't do your laundry. You told me you were going to do it. Now I put mine off. I have to put my. Oh no, geez. Those are little, shall I say, vignettes about the whole issue of trust itself. And now let's talk about it from a business or leadership point of view. Why do you think it's important for your direct reports to trust you?
Just setting expectations. The biggest one I think many supervisors or managers violate is time, like setting up a meeting time, starting on time, finishing on time, as opposed to just letting it drag on. And I mean, so if you can you value your employees' time and they trust you, then when you set up a 30 or 60-minute meeting, they know it's going to take 30 or 60 minutes, depending on. So it's not. That's a small one, but I think that goes a long way too, though.
Okay, so that is one. I think another one is that you make promises about their career, you make promises about their salary or the amount of money they might be having could work. Or there's just a lot of different ways, and trust is necessary because if you don't deliver that, you suddenly become persona non grata. People that look past you, they don't do what you will ask them to do, and they won't extend themselves beyond their required necessary politeness.
Right. I got a good one, actually. It's relevant to us. We started up Intrinsic First, and close to 2 years ago, we brought on our first employees, and one of them we brought on a little bit later in the game, a few months later. This is Justin. Justin, this is for you. And Justin Keller, he's
not over there. He's talking to the camera.
He's going to be listening to this. So Justin calls me up on a Friday, and he just started working for us maybe a week or so ago. And he calls me up on a Friday, like Friday evening. He's like, "Hey, I just got paid." I'm like, "Good." He's like, "Yeah, I didn't know if it was for real or not." But I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I just took the job. I didn't know if you guys were real." It's just a lot of trust there. I was like, "No, this is real."
He serious?
Yeah, he was dead serious. You got to be Justin.
I think he was joking. He wouldn't have actually taken the job if he didn't think we were a legit company.
There is some genuine, like, wow, this really worked.
Yeah.
So, and even this was for Neo, who we just hired recently. And before he took the job, his wife's like, "Is this real?"
His wife asked him.
Yeah, because we're trying to hire him and bring him on, and she's like, "Is this real?" Like, I know it's heritage, but is this real?
Do you know if they have any contracts? Do you know if they're really doing work out there?
No, it's real. It's legit. So but there's a lot of trust that goes into that. Like, to your point, when it comes to salary and whether or not you're going to get paid. We're a little more secure in our business because we have those government contracts. But if you're looking at like a startup, you don't know if you're going to get that payroll's coming through.
Murder.
And I've heard Tim Westergreen, who started Pandora several years ago and sold since then, but he told us a story of where he basically ran out of money, but he had like a staff of 10 or so people still working for him, without money. He finally got some VC money to cover, and then they blew up after that. But he said the best part of that job was being able to take that VC money and back paying his employees. And he said it was incredibly rewarding, and they stuck with him. And there's this level of trust that you just don't always see. But for many startups, that's a real issue. Unfortunately, we were secured by a government contract. So, but yeah, yeah.
But the question would be, what would happen if you in your own business if that happened? If you were notoriously untrustworthy?
I don't think you would have the people there to support you, right? They kind of bail on you.
Well, that's right. I think trust for me with employees is one of the biggest ones. Has to do with communication, right? I want people to trust me enough to know that they can come to me with whatever problem they have or issue, and that it's not going to come back on them, or they're not going to get chastised, or even if they get another job offer, that they don't have to wait until their 2-week notice to let me know. Because, on my end, I don't want to have 2 weeks to try to backfill a position if they've known for a month and a half. And I want them to be able to trust that I'm not going to just say, "Oh, you're leaving, huh? Oh, well, how about this? Now you're gone right now." But people do that, unfortunately. And then you get this perception, regardless of the amount of work you do to build on people's trust, but it takes time.
It really hurts.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, people first is what we lead by. So, and to really not just say it, but back it up. So when we're having conversations with our employees, we know at some point they're going to leave our company, but we want to know that we're there to support them, because we know if we support them, that they'll do the job, they'll take care of the company, it'll come back. But the idea is that they can come to us and tell us, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking this other job to help my career grow," because we know that we're very limited as to what we can do for some of their careers if they're coming in as a mid-level a mid-level program manager or whatever, the idea is that they're going to want to grow and take those bigger jobs or bigger responsibilities. And so, yeah, that's huge for them to come and tell us ahead of time, so that way we can have a succession plan in place.
Or also just talk to them. I mean, in orientation, when I talk to new hires that are working for me, I'll usually tell them, in this industry, in defense industry where we work, people are working side by side with other companies, and offers come all the time, unsolicited. So even they may not have even been going after it themselves, which is fine either way. If they're unhappy with their job for whatever reason, I'm not going to, come down on them. That's something either I need to change or we just can't change.
Sometimes the government even comes and offers them jobs. And so when that happens,
True.
In either case, the idea is, what we like to do is work with them. Like, just lay out the information. Here's the pros and cons to choosing the other employer. And we just want to give them information, and it's ultimately going to be them to decide that. And that way we don't want to be controlling in any means, but we want to make sure they have enough information to make an educated decision and not just go off their gut kind of thing. So, I think they appreciate that.
Just think about it, because those are human exchanges. Think about the possibilities of mistrust in organizational settings around things like reporting taxes or expenses that you might be returning to get reimbursed from travel expenses.
Sure.
Those exchanges are based on the willingness to put my credit card out there in the hotel because you're going to pay me back, and or the company's going to pay me back one way or the other. Right. And so there's some very, very, and so Enron Corp, Enron, a company that went totally belly up because what they did were they were buying future calls, barrels of oil to go up or down, and then making if you expect the price to go up, and so you buy a lot, and then all of a sudden you don't, and the price goes down. Those are built off all of trust. And what happened was they were offloading these bad debts that they were making by dispersing those monies out to their subsidiaries. Now, the interesting thing about that was that they were in cahoots with their financial observers. I mean, their accountant companies were allowing those to be shuffled off, and so when that hit the knowledge base, they couldn't pay those, and we're talking about $80 million.
Yeah, quite a bit.
And so a whole company went belly up.
And a lot of people didn't see it coming that worked for that company.
Exactly,
their
right.
entire 401k.
And there were
gone.
people who knew about it,
Yes.
and they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look at it, there's a big load on the word trust, and it has a great deal to do with what is happening in our minds. One last one. We believe that what comes across, let's say, news presentations or news releases is, quote, true, can be verified. And of course, there are newspapers that say we have to be able to have two sources to support that assertion that was X, Y. And when that falls apart, just what happens to that? What happens to the public's awareness of it? So the question of trust itself is our culture is really based on it in some ways. Now the question is, what do you do if you dishonest? And dishonesty can be in a whole bunch of different contexts, of course, whether a bank does what they say they're going to do, or whether stock is really what it is. And those kinds of things are just startlingly obvious, but oftentimes, and in these days, it seems to me that there's a lot of mistrust.
Yeah, and part of that is as a consumer or an employee to understand if your values are aligned, and if their incentives are aligned as well. I mean, a very common one I've heard, if I'm going to go purchase a home, I'm going to hire a real estate agent. But is her incentives aligned with mine? And if you really think about it, it's not, because she gets a percentage of the sale. So why is she incentivized to give me the lowest price possible on that home?
Yes.
So that there's a misalignment there that we should be aware of.
Yes,
as a
conflict
consumer.
of interest.
Absolutely. And then going back to the news cycle is like, are they delivering the news or are they delivering entertainment?
Well, yeah, because they get paid by ratings.
That's right. They get paid by eyeballs. More eyeballs watching the program, the more money they get from the advertisers. Yep. And so there's a misalignment there as well. And so you hope there's truth to reporting, but again, are they in entertainment business or are they in the news business? So I looked at my daughter. She graduated from high school already, but when she was going through civics, which I thought was fantastic because they had to go and debate quite a bit current events, and they always had to bring their sources. Like, where did you get that information from? And that was super awesome because it made her like do more homework and make sure she wasn't just pulling something up from, some Wikipedia or something like that. But she was actually getting from credible sources.
Or some politicians.
Yes.
Some politicians thought about what's true.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So that's what I think our society needs to do more of, is just verify those sources, understand what the incentives are, and all that I think will build trust. And make things a little bit better, I think, for everyone.
Well, that leads to one of the issues we haven't talked about, and we should at some point do a podcast on it, and that's ethics. The whole issue of ethics. What does it mean to be ethical? People, I often ask people, well, how do you know someone's ethical? What does it mean to be ethical? What's your definition of ethics? Those kinds of things are often not discussed and often misused. And that brings us back to the character of the leader you want to be, the character of the person you want to represent to people. And of course, it's fundamentally important because you can't, people aren't going to follow you if you're not somehow connected to a vision of what's right and wrong. And so one of the things that I believe leaders don't do well is they don't create a humanistic vision for the organization, a humanistic vision that takes the welfare of the whole in mind, not just the welfare of what they get out of it economically or what they get out of it from a status or power point of view. And so driving home the idea of how do I know I'm a fair man? You ever think about that question?
I do. Actually, I do.
Well, tell me.
I always have this discussion of, because I teach economics, so I'm always start off with Adam Smith and this notion of being self-interested, right? And what's the difference between being self-interested and selfish? Now, I always think about that a lot, and it's always, when I make this decision, it hopefully it benefits me, right? But am I doing it at the expense of other people? So that's the question I always ask. What am I doing right now? And am I going to hurt somebody else by doing this, even though it's going to benefit me? And so by doing that, I hope to be a fair person. I don't want to do it to screw someone over. So I'm always thinking about that. So that's my take on.
Good. I like that. For me, I believe that there's two sides to pretty much any decision I might make. And I have to not only ask, what do I get out of it? But I have to ask, what does someone else get out of it? Or better yet, do I lose and they win? Or do they win and I lose? Those are important questions to ask. And so if I'm a just, fair person, I have to sacrifice or I have to do things that include the welfare of somebody else or all people that are related to it. So the welfare of the whole, the welfare of the organization is as important, should be as important to me as my welfare within it and the role I play and what I get from working at what I do for the organization. And that constant weighing of, okay, who loses and who wins? And then what's the difference? How do I view that and say, I can't do that because it's not right. It's not right for somebody else, not just the right or good for me. And seeing those things constantly is, and so how do you create a fair humanistic vision for your organization? Why are you doing it? And so oftentimes leaders think about the economic impact of what they want or what they expect, not the social impact of what they want or what they expect for other people in the circumstance.
So, did you have something? I was gonna pivot a little bit, just like.
Yeah, we're kind of running on time. I was thinking this would be a good break point, and we can, because I'd like to get more into the head and heart sides of trust in terms of the model, and maybe we kind of cut it here, and you can tell a joke about a cat.
Oh,
because that's what you said you were going to do, and then we could pick up on our next podcast with more about the trust model.
All right, you're on. I have to tell a joke about a cat.
About a cat.
No, you don't have to, but you told me, you said, remind me about the cat.
Oh, well, this man was driving through an urban neighborhood in the rain, and it was raining. It was just literally pelting. He couldn't see it in front of him. And all of a sudden, he hears, boom, and he goes, uh-oh. Well, that didn't sound right. And so he gets out of the car, goes around to the front, and he's run, realizes he's run over a cat and killed it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he said, God, if it was my cat, I'd want to know about this. So he goes to the first house with a light on it, right on the door. And a little old lady comes around to the corner and says, yes. And he said, excuse me, ma'am, do you own a cat? She says, yeah, why, yes, I do. And he said, well, I have to tell you, I think I ran over your cat. And she said, oh, no. What did the cat look like? And he goes, and she says, no, stupid, before you hit it.
That is not going to work for the people only listening. So if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I highly recommend you check out our YouTube video of that joke. And you can see Drea's actions on that joke.
I'm sorry.
No, that's a good one. I remember that one.
I mean, since we were doing these jokes, I got my son, he's like 11. I got him a dad joke calendar. So every night he comes down and he tells a joke for dinner. And so the last one he just told was about, it's a version. I'm going to tell a slightly different version of the joke, but it was basically, my wife told me to take a spider out instead of killing it. So we went out, had a few drinks. Nice guy. Turns out he's a web designer.
Oh, jeez.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ones, I think, from the calendar so far.
Yeah, that's really good.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess we'll pick it up again in a few minutes.
Congrats! You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We genuinely hope that you found value in our conversation. If you liked it, please click that like button below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on our current episodes. And if you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, but make sure you click it twice. We're eager to hear from you, whether it's your thoughts, questions, topic ideas, or if you're interested in our leadership training and consulting support. Leave us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. We're open to any and all feedback. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more insightful leadership discussion. Until next time.